Okay, we're live. Good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone. I'm Alberto from the Poburan Theater, and today we're with me for another live interview. There's Landon Poburan. I never knew how to pronounce his surname. You tell us. So, welcome, first of all, Landon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. You nailed the last name. I used to play sports, so I've heard all sorts of different pronunciations, but you got it. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. I know what it means because I have two last names, which is very unusual in Italy. And the first one has Hungarian, I think, origins. And so the accent is on the last vowel, and no one in Italy gets it. So it's I just don't care anymore. So Lando. We met on Substack, we virtually met on Substack and on Mastermind and maybe some other call or community around Substack. And so today, as usual, I want to talk with you about your processes, your system, your habits, your mindset as regards uh, content in general. Mainly Substack, I think. But if you are active on other platforms, it will be interesting as well. So, first of all, right now, where are you publishing? Where are you as a content creator?
Yeah, so as a creator, I would say my primary platform is Substack. For a while, I was publishing everywhere, but since I kind of got stuck in on writing, Substack has become the primary. I was also repurposing a little bit to LinkedIn, a little bit to Facebook, and every now and then I'll repurpose long form articles to Medium. But as of recently, I've just really noticed that not much happens on LinkedIn. So I've now, as of like this week, I was only repurposing my long form posts like once a week to LinkedIn. So I've stopped doing that. So pretty much Substack has become like the focal point of my content creation for audience growth. I do email, so that's separate, but I don't kind of classify that as social media. But I repurpose my long form articles that come out once a week and occasional posts or emails that I write. I'll also send out to Facebook just because I've spent, a decade plus networking, going to groups and masterminds. I
Mm.
have a decent amount of people inside my network on Facebook. So it just kind of keeps me top of mind for people when they see that I'm posting something. It's not always the content. Sometimes it's just seeing the name for kind of brand recognition in the feed. But I just kind of copy paste over to Facebook. But for the most part, publishing a daily on Substack.
Okay, and so you are a writer. You basically post just written content.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be correct. Yeah, I wouldn't. I've struggled to identify as a writer, but yeah, I'm only posting written content. I've done video. I've hosted two podcasts. I've produced and created well over 200 podcasts in my lifetime, but I really feel at home writing. It's the least stressful, doesn't require all of the post production. So those are mediums I might entertain again in the future, but for right now, I'm just going to stick to writing.
And maybe Substack Live.
Yes, yes. Like I love it. I was going really hard on Substack Lives for a little bit, and then I found it was taking a lot out of me in terms of the preparation, sharing the posts, and just the act of kind of being on, so to speak. So I'm doing a lot more Substack lives, but more where I'm being interviewed or collaborating with somebody as opposed to showing up just myself to do a live, just so it can be a little bit more of a casual conversation. But I try and keep it to like a maximum of like one a week, just to kind of keep myself within my capacity for being able to show up well for everything that I'm doing.
Okay. And meanwhile, thanks to everyone who just joined us. Landon will be with us for about an hour. So if you have any question, just put it in the chat. We'll find the time to reply. And I'll start from the a question I asked times. How is your day? Is your typical day right now? In general, work, non-work.
It sounds good. So it's taken many iterations over the years, but
Mm.
my typical day right now starts is I start my day with movement and exercise. So I wake up, I go straight to the gym, I work out for about an hour, I come back, eat, and then I get into my writing. So movement, get into writing. That's how I start my day. My writing is typically around 30 to 60 minutes every single morning. From there,
Okay.
I kind of intersperse kind of blocks of work with walks to kind of break up the day, get a little bit of movement in there. So I typically try and work on about 3 blocks in a day, is kind of how my day works. So that first block is my writing and my creation time. My second block is typically client work, which usually lasts about 2 hours, and then I'll usually eat lunch. I'll come back. And then from there, I will kind of wrap up. Usually it's either anything pending for client work or projects that I'm working on, my own kind of stuff, replying to comments. And that's typically when my day wraps up around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. From there, I kind of go into, I guess you could loosely call it like a self care routine, kind of the things that I do to try and keep myself in check, try and make sure that I'm firing on all cylinders, where it's like a little bit of like breath work, meditation,
Yeah.
journaling. If I kind of have anything kind of on my mind, I might do a little bit of reading. I'm enjoying some philosophy right now, which is something that I'm really
Mm.
passionate about. And that's typically what my day looks like. And then, I've been getting a little bit into running. So a couple days a week, I'll go for a run a little bit later in the afternoon. But that's kind of like the what my day looks like, and it's like I'm incredibly boring. My days pretty much look the same every single day of the week. I get up at the same time. I go to the gym, I write, and that also carries through on the weekends. I still get up, I'm still active. Sometimes like on the weekends it's not necessarily a workout, but I might do a little bit of yoga. I still like I was just thinking about a post in my head, and I was thinking about like routine is religion, and that's just like this. I like alliteration, so not
Uh,
necessarily as a religion, but I'm just very structured, and I like things to be the same. My breakfast is pretty much the same every day, so my routine is very structured throughout the week.
yeah. We're very similar in this. My breakfast and lunches are almost the same. Yeah, yeah. But I like that. So it's not forced for me. Do you? So I guess that well, you told it. You told it. You. I guess you built this day through experimentation. Did this routine through experimentation. I guess so. You like this kind of factor. You don't feel constricted.
Yeah, 100%. I would say like the my routine is something that I really, really enjoy. And I kind of take an approach of like continuous experimentation,
Mm.
never at a finish line, but also being very kind to myself that I understand things are going to take time to refine and iterate on that process. So, for example, when I first started writing on Substack back in 2013, 2023, I was only writing on the weekends. So Sunday
Okay.
morning, I would sit down for 1 to 2 hours, write a post, and that was my weekly post that was going out. And that slowly iterated over time into spending a little bit more time at the end of my day on writing. And then I hit a point where it was something that I really wanted to prioritize. So I shifted that to the start of my day. I like
Yeah.
starting with whatever is most valuable to me, not only from a business standpoint. I know we talk about Brian Tracy and Eat the Frog, and I don't necessarily abide by those principles, but I like to prioritize myself. So that's why I like my exercise is you feel like in my day, you can tell what I value most. My exercise is the first thing in the day, and that's never missed. Then it's writing, and I have a very long writing streak going on. But writing not only makes me feel good and I like the creative
Yeah.
act, it also is something that drives the growth of my business. It's what fuels pretty much everything that kind of comes down the line. But it's also, if I don't prioritize it, then there's always a chance it might not get done. So I always move that to the start of my day. So it's always this continuous iteration. Could that change in the future? Absolutely. But for now, this is what it looks like.
And you you have been self-employed for a while now, or did you have a regular job before?
So I have pretty much never worked a typical
Okay.
employee paycheck type of job. I've had what would look like full-time contracts for people where I'm an independent contractor working with companies and it's kind of their when you would look at my how much money I'm making, they might be responsible for like 80 to 90% of the amount of money that I'm making because I'm spending, maybe 6 hours a day working with that one client. So I did that for a period of time and I ended the last probably about 12 to 14 months ago was the last kind of like large client that I had that was taking up a very large majority of my day that I walked away from, put that all behind me and was I'm no longer interested in kind of giving that much of myself to like one specific client.
Okay.
It was really burning me out. It was too much for me to handle. So now everything is kind of driven through my writing, through my own kind of clients that I'm working with on paid advertising, selling
Yes.
products, and generating money through the writing.
Interesting. Okay. And yeah, I was asking because when you are self-employed, you have more um, leverage, you more freedom in restructuring your day and doing this kind of experiments. And I think it could be one reason to go over the fear of leaving a regular job, an employee job, because yeah, you the sky is the limit when you can decide what you do with every hour in your day, and you spend a lot of time working out and doing self care. Do you feel did you ever find evidence of how it improves your writing, or maybe your thinking about your writing and your strategy? Because um, some people uh, detach, separate the two things, and but I I'm sure that I'm doing just 15 minutes of yoga every day and then work out in the afternoon a few times per week. But I feel that uh, just 15 minutes improve my possibly my mind, but yeah, they get things moving. And what is for you the relationship between maybe um, health, but also body and writing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question. I think that it's something that happens over time. It's not necessarily that, like, let's say you meditate or you do yoga for 15 minutes and
Mhm.
you might feel better, but the next day you might not. So you might be like, no, this isn't for me. It's something that I feel these practices kind of compound over time. They allow us to start to increase our capacity for things, start to increase our capacity. So if we look at the benefits of these types of practices, whether it's yoga, breath work, meditation, going for long walks, spending time in nature, these kind of self-care practices, we have things like, you know, lower rates of anxiety, reduced stress, more clear mind, more focus. And when I look at writing from a creative process, I think of
Mm.
things like, how sharp am I? How are my ideas coming? And things like that. So that when I'm sitting staring at a blank screen, typically when I'm really stressed, the first thing that goes is my creativity. So I'll sit down to write and I don't know what to write about. Or I'll be waking up in the morning and I'm no longer looking forward to writing. These are usually indicators for me that I need to spend a little bit more time on myself because as
Mm.
solopreneurs, freelancers, our business is run by one person and it's us.
Yeah.
So if we don't feel good, we don't have the energy to put into our business, then it's going to be very difficult to get to where we're trying to go. So I think it's so important to really place an emphasis on ourselves. And there's hundreds of different things that we could do. So for me, I find it's really important to experiment. Somebody might like breath work, somebody might hate it. Somebody might like yoga, somebody might like Tai Chi, somebody might find their solace going and doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Just these types
Ah,
of
yeah,
things that allow you to expel energy, move your body. There's so much data and science to back it up. And I've
yeah,
spent years of my life investing into personal development, reading, learning, working with therapists, working with coaches. My wife is also a registered counselor and psychologist.
okay,
It's a very large part of us. So I think it's so important to spend that time. So for me, I really try and hit four things every single day. One of those things is for my body. So for my health, so things like movement, whatever that might be, but it's generally going to be some type of yoga or strength training. And
yeah,
then something from like what I would refer to broadly as my mind. So anything where it's yoga, meditation, breath work, something where I can utilize that to create clarity. Because I think a lot of things from a creative standpoint don't drop in when we're trying to create. It drops
yeah,
in the moments in between. It happens when we're in the shower, when we're going for a nice long walk, when we're sitting in silence. And as entrepreneurs, when we get too caught up in just trying to be productive, trying to do more, always trying to keep ourselves busy, we don't allow ourselves for the subconscious to actually start to pull in these ideas that are being dropped in because we're always trying to do something.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
much that I find for me, it's when I create that space in between activities that ideas start to drop in. So I would say probably I don't can't give it a percentage because I would just be making it up, but I
Of
have
course,
a
yeah,
lot of ideas that come just when I'm at the gym. So I'm not trying to be productive. I'm just focused on the exercise. I'm moving my body. I'm expelling energy. And then ideas come in. Ideas come in. And then I make notes.
yeah,
I want to write a post about this. I'm going to make a note about this. I'm going to write an email about this. And like that's where my idea comes in. So I find it so, so important to integrate those practices. And for me, for a period of time, it was like 2 minute meditation. Sometimes it might be three breaths. I don't think we need to overcomplicate these things.
okay,
But for me, I look for like warning signs of when I know that this needs to be prioritized. And that's generally when I see myself struggling to write. It's no longer fun and I'm no longer looking forward to it.
yeah,
Ideas aren't coming, or I just start to get a little bit more irritable. And for me, when I start craving energy drinks and craving more caffeine, those are signs that it's like, okay, I know that I'm starting to see my stress levels increase.
yeah.
And I know what I need to prioritize is those things that are just for me.
Interesting. So you have a high level of sensitivity. You can recognize. Is it something that is it a skill you always had, or is it something you developed over time?
Yeah, I would definitely say it is a skill. I think awareness is the first step. Becoming aware of when these things are occurring and happening, because if we're not aware of them, we don't necessarily know that it's something that we need to look further into. So just through exposure of books and people and all of those types of things, I think we start to increase our level of awareness and it's
Okay.
a skill that we refine. So if I were to look back at myself, say 3 to 5 years ago, when I would be in kind of what like a low or like a depressive state, if I go back even like 6, 7 years when I closed the business, I was drinking 4 to 5 energy drinks a day. I had massive
Wow.
bags under my eyes. I was working 16 hours a day with a business that I was running. And a low for me would derail me for weeks or months where I
Yeah.
no energy. I wouldn't want to do anything. I wouldn't be posting on social media. I wouldn't even be having like good conversations with people. I wasn't fun to be around.
Yeah.
But for
Basically,
me,
depressed. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And now it's not that that just disappears. but I can recognize when it's coming on because I've
Mhm.
recognized and come aware of those warning signs and those signals. And I've developed a set of tools to
Yeah.
deploy when I need to. So now I might feel down for days, but I can become aware of it, deploy those tools, work through it, and get back to a much better place. So for me, it's definitely a skill. And the biggest thing for me is I used to think that I could just make all of this go away. So it was like I remember talking to a life coach maybe 4 years ago, and I was like, so is it possible to never feel self-doubt again? And they were like, yes.
Mhm.
I don't personally believe that. I think that some of these things for some of us will still arise, but we can recognize it and we can move through it quicker and more efficiently than we did
Absolutely.
before so that it doesn't cost us a month. It costs us 2 days where we take a little bit more time for us. Maybe we're a little bit less productive, but that's kind of the way that I look at it. 100% is skill. And I think people can develop it, but it just takes time and investment and prioritization.
Yeah, you got help from coaches. They helped you develop this. They maybe gave you oversight again, or just you had the right conversations that helped you develop this awareness. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of books, lots of podcasts, lots of curiosity, working with different coaches, life coaches. I've done all sorts of modalities. I've looked into all sorts of things. I've gone to, I'm very, very pro seeing like a therapist or a counselor. I think so many of those are because it's bigger than business. It's not just about like when I started, it was like, what do I need to do with my life so that I can make more money? Now it's like, what do I need to do with these things so that I can enjoy life more and be more present? And when I'm able to do those things, the net side effect is that my business generally is
Yeah.
funner, makes more money, and it's a lot less stressful.
And you now your work day is short now, much shorter than the past, but also short in general. I remember reading that you work just a few hours per day, right?
So yeah, I would. So it's an interesting question because we see a lot of people saying working 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
and I put out a question and I didn't get a clear response. And I was like, what does 4 hours of work look like for people? And a lot of people were saying like
Mhm.
deep work. So I would say that I spend less than 4 hours a day working outside of my writing. So
Oh, okay.
if I include writing, I would say 4 to 5 hours on average, if I average out a week. Um, if I include writing, but I could very easily, if I wanted to, work less than 4 hours a day.
Great. Yeah. And do you think that this journey, self-awareness journey, helped you make the right decisions or the better decisions that led you to find the right things to work on so that you can work fewer hours?
Yeah, I really, really do because that's where it all stemmed from. That was the entry point into this journey of self-discovery was a conversation that I had with my therapist. And it was during a time of chronic burnout and she expressed a lot of concern to me. She was like, when I was articulating what I was doing, how much I was working, she told me she was afraid that I was at the point where I might have like an actual physical collapse and end up in the hospital.
Mhm.
So from that point, it really got me to a point of reevaluating my business and going, is this sustainable? And what needs to change.
Yeah.
And a pivotal point was when she told me to recover from burnout. When we look at like the clinical definition of chronic burnout, it could take upwards of 3 months, 6 months off. So there's people that will have to leave their job for 6 months to a year because of burnout in order to like fully allow their bodies to recover. So that got me reflecting and going, I'm not in a position where I can take 6 months off of work, but it made me start to evaluate, how can I change what I'm doing to rest more? How can I reduce the stress levels of my day? And if I wanted to be able to take a month or 3 months off of work, what would my business have to look like to be able to do that? And that really started to get me to shift focus in terms of my business models, how I was generating my revenue, the clients that I was
Mhm.
working with, how my days look like,
Yeah.
and starting to go, how much am I working? And that's when I started to work less, because it was, how can I reduce burnout, work to fully recover, but also how can I put myself in a position to where I can take a full week off, I could take a month off. And that's
Mhm.
kind of the larger picture of what I'm trying to create inside my business right now.
And that's why um, you moved from one single large client or a couple to multiple clients, basically.
Yes, yes, 100%. And it's also the reason that I've shifted from, I want to reduce the amount of phone calls that I do,
Yeah.
because I want to take a month off. I don't want to have to worry about managing somebody's advertising. I
Yeah.
don't I can't take 3 months off work if I have to manage a team. So, how do I build a business that doesn't require calls, that doesn't require a team? If right now I do some paid advertising, so I'm having to
Mhm.
do the work. So it's okay if I want to take 3 months off, how can I remove that from my business? So I shifted into, I need to build a personal brand because I know the power of a personal brand. I need to have a large audience so that I can now start to
Mhm.
make passive and recurring revenue, which I refer to as like leveraged income sources. So
Yeah.
digital products, courses, affiliate marketing,
Mhm.
partnerships, rev share deals, sponsorships in my newsletter, all of these income sources. I was like, okay, those are what will allow me to create this. In order to have the ability to make enough money selling these things, I need to have a large enough audience. So that's where I focus a lot of my time now, is building the brand, building my audience, while kind of building out these leverage sources on the side.
Mhm.
And I've started to kind of crack the code on it. It started to work, and I'm not there where I can take 3 months off, but I'm in a place where I can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm.
And I know that it's possible. It's just a matter of getting the final pieces in place now.
Great. It's a great story. And Joseph was asking, "What's your job exactly?" Which is a bad question for a solopreneur, online solopreneur, because usually we do three or four different things. And but we touched on it. But basically, you have clients for your advertising management, I think, and then let us explain how you make money, basically.
Yeah, so I help writers, coaches, and course creators sell their programs and sell their courses. That's
Okay.
in very simple terms, that's what I do. I'm very pro simplicity. I'm very pro like lifestyle based businesses. So I
Yeah.
do this through a matter of consulting, done for you services. I do some paid advertising where I help clients sell their high ticket coaching programs. I help creators on Substack grow and monetize their audiences and monetize their publications. But in very simple terms, I'm helping these people build businesses that sell their programs and sell their courses.
Okay. Okay. And usually, it is through coaching calls, or are you doing work for them?
So both. So both. So I do a mixture of where I'm running ads for people. So that's kind of like the highest level service that I offer, where I'm doing it for them. And then I also have consulting services where I'm jumping on either coaching calls or consulting calls with either the person doing the work, the owner of the company, or like the team of the company. And then I also have kind of sources where I have courses and educational resources, free educational resources that allow people to kind of go through my material and deploy it for themselves. And then I
Okay.
also have all of my free education on Substack that kind of walk
Yeah.
through things like that as well.
And a bit more technical question, and you don't have to share exact numbers, but did you have to raise prices to get to this result of working fewer hours? Because usually the problem when we sell consulting or services of any kind, it's that you're just charging your fees are just too low, and so you can't limit the number of hours you work in a day. So, and this is also a mindset problem often because you just don't think you can. Uh, you're just afraid to raise prices. So it was a step you had to take.
I so I kind of take an approach of one of my core values is making information accessible to people. So
Mm,
I've spent a lot of time in traditional masterminds that cost upwards of $50,000 or more a year to be a part of. I've traveled to events and I saw a trend of $2,000 programs becoming $5,000 programs, $5,000 programs becoming $10,000 programs,
yeah.
$10,000 programs becoming $20,000 programs, not because the program was changing, but because it was becoming harder to advertise. So people just charged more. And a lot of people were getting completely burnt out. They were maxing credit cards to be a part of
Oh,
things. And I don't like that culture. So a large part of my core values is trying to make information accessible to as many people as I can. So that's the reason I don't have a paid subscription and get my content on Substack. I have a $27 course. So what my goal is through my intimate and signature offers, which is me working directly with people, those haven't really increased, but I
huh,
use those to generate the cash flow that allows me to put out stuff at accessible prices for people. So I have a range of services through a lot of low ticket products, and I have some higher ticket services, but I didn't actually increase my prices. They were increased a little bit, but very marginally, like
yeah,
$500 kind of thing. Those prices haven't really increased. And it's a little bit of kind of like a core value for me. So right now inside my business, my goal isn't necessary to try and make a ton more money. It's to shift where my money is coming from,
yeah.
which gives me more of a lifestyle based business that aligns with my values. So instead of me having to go and check someone's ads,
Yeah.
I am selling a course through an email. So
Yeah.
that's the shift that I'm working on right now. So I haven't actually increased my prices. And I think it confuses a lot of people when they're like, well, how do you work less but make the same or more money? And to me, it was a very big mindset shift. And when I was recommended the book 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman, it was just like this switch. It was like the right book at the right time in my life. And I've now read it 3 or 4 times. But it just shifted the way I was thinking about things to you're never going to cross all of the items off of your to-do. I actually wrote out everything that was on my mind because I have ADHD, so there's a lot of things swirling around my head. I made a list on a paper behind me, all of my to-dos, and there's like dozens of things that I want to do from like update my Substack bio, update my
Yeah.
website, email sequence for this, email sequence for that. But once I realized that it wasn't about being more productive, I view it as prioritization. So I go, prioritization for me is more important than productivity. So when I said I'm not going to work to 4, I'm going to end my days at 1, it wasn't that I needed to increase my prices to do that. It was that I accepted the fact I might not get as many things done on my to do list, but I'm going to learn which things are the most important to do that will drive my business forward. And by simply prioritizing the right tasks and accepting the consequences of the tasks that aren't getting done, I was
Yeah.
able to make the exact same amount of money while working less
Yeah.
hours.
Incredible. And you are now aiming at a business model that requires a larger audience, because if you want to sell products and not services, and you want to sell low price products, it's even, you need even more people. So did this lead you to did you have to accept some compromises, because, for example, you can I tried many topics as a creator, and some topics just have a very low ceiling of a market ceiling, market size ceiling, let's call it. And so, did you have to? Uh, what did you have to change? Because sometimes it's a sacrifice you have to do, because maybe you want to talk about something very specific, but that doesn't attract enough people.
Yeah. So the perfect example is I don't have my podcasts anymore. I don't have my YouTube channel anymore. I don't post on Twitter. I don't post on TikTok. I don't post on LinkedIn anymore. I don't post on Instagram. I occasionally drop posts in these places, but the sacrifice for me was going, I can't repurpose my content everywhere. I'm going to focus on this one place. So that was just like, it's just the consolidation of efforts to like, for me, I want to think of what is the thing that I can do on my worst days. I refer to them as my minimal viable habits. So like, you think of like floors and ceilings, like, okay, I need to write every day. Would
Mhm.
writing 1,000 words a day be great? Yes. But if I write 47, I still wrote today. So for me, it's like, if I can figure out that like that one needle mover, which for me became writing, so I've reduced the noise from all of the other things because I'm working less. I don't have the time to put into taking my long form posts, videoing myself as I speak it to put it out on YouTube, podcasts, and create short form clips to be on all of the platforms. But as we go into the micro, like you asked, does it require me to get more specific with my publication?
Yeah,
Yes, it does. But I understand these sacrifices and I still accept them every few weeks. So I write a lot of growth content. I feel like
yeah,
I'm growing fairly well. I've grown about 1,200 new subscribers in the last 30 days on Substack. So I'm growing at a fairly good rate. And so I post growth content, but I also pull in deeper content. I talk about failure. I talk about my personal journey, but there's a sacrifice there because I know that those don't reach as many people. So
yeah,
I still accept that at some level because to me, I enjoy writing about that. And it's not only about likes and views and new subscribers, because sometimes that content resonates with people even more deeply. So 100%, I do think that there is compromise. I have had to get more narrow in my focus and
yeah.
understand the few things that are going to drive me towards what I'm trying to create. And I've identified that as Substack. If I were to say more specifically, I would say email list, but Substack allows me to grow that because Substack is an email list. And then
Okay.
it's also consistency. So it's identifying that and then just continuing to do the work repeatedly.
And so, did you find the perfect ratio? Maybe, I don't know. Every month I publish three. You publish weekly, right?
Mhm.
So maybe every month you publish 2 or 3 articles about growing on Substack, and one article, a more personal article.
Yeah, I don't think I try not to overcomplicate it to that level
Okay.
of okay, I need to do one growth article, then one personal article. I try and pull in as much intuition to it as I can.
Okay.
And I gather the signals and I filter them through my gut and then I just kind of let things move forward. So I think trying to have the perfect ratio, the perfect posting schedule, I think a lot of those things can cause more overwhelm than we need. So I
Yeah.
do take a very kind of imperfect consistency kind of like approach to things. So I'm looking to incrementally improve, look at the data, understand what people are engaging with, what's driving me
Yeah.
forward, but I also pull in what do I enjoy doing? Because at the end of the day, if I'm consistently putting out stuff that's growing, but I hate doing it and I don't enjoy writing about it, I'm not having fun, then I know that I'm not going to be consistent with it. Because for me, one of the core factors of consistency is doing something that feels aligned and that we actually enjoy
Yeah.
doing, which is likely why Mr. Beast has been able to put out viral YouTube videos for decades because the guy looks like he truly enjoys doing it. And I think that's
Mm,
so important to the process.
mm. Okay. And talking about writing, what's your writing process? Because you write basically the same for the same amount of minutes every day, and but you published one article per week. I know you're still publishing on Notes, so short form content is shown in the notes. And so, what's your process from ideation to final product?
Yeah. So again, just like we were talking about iterating on our processes and just
Yeah,
continuing experimenting, this has changed a lot over the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, I would sit down, write, I would come up with an idea, I'd write the article, edit it, publish it inside of like 90 minutes. Then over time, I got to a point where I was experimenting with putting out more content. So I was trying to write articles in like 45 minutes or 60 minutes and put out like 3 a week. I just didn't enjoy that process as much.
mm,
So I know I have writers on the platform. We have Jamie and we got Maggiaro that are putting out like high volumes of content, daily newsletters.
yeah,
Matt did an experiment in April where he put a long form newsletter out every single day. And for them, they enjoy that. But for me, that's not my ideal creation schedule. So I shifted back to, okay, I'm going to put out one article a week and I'm probably going to write it over the course of however long it takes to write.
yeah,
Then I'm going to schedule it. So my writing process usually starts with I have a bank of ideas. So I have an
mhm,
idea. I rough out the points that I want to hit for that idea, go through like an ideation process. I flesh out the article, try and create like a skeleton of the structure so that when I start writing, it's kind of like paint by numbers. I'm pretty much just kind of like filling in the blanks.
yeah, yeah,
I'll create the headline from the structure of what I've created so that the what I'm writing about has a very consistent through line with the big idea that I'm pulling in through the title. I'll go through, write it, I will edit it, and then I will publish it. But I will do that now over the course of like 3 to 5 writing sessions. So my
mhm,
articles typically will take me about 1 week to schedule, but I hate pressure and I hate stress. So I have 6 weeks right now. I have 6 weeks of articles scheduled and stuff.
wow.
So I like to stay ahead because I hate being in a position where I'm like, I need to get this up today because of my weekly routine. So I
Yeah.
try and stay very, very scheduled with my routine.
And do you spend? I think often editing is the phase of the work, the part of the work that can derail all your plans because maybe in 1 hour the draft is ready, but then editing takes a lot. What kind of editor you are? You usually rewrite or do you edit while drafting? What do you do?
A little bit of both. So I typically, when I write, the way that my brain works is I get lots of ideas when I'm not working. So even when I'm creating like a business plan or working with a consulting client,
Yeah.
I prefer to do it over if I'm working on like a business plan or a business audit for a client, I'm not going to do it in one day. I'm probably going to do it over the course of a week because I'll spend 1 to 2 hours on it and then I'll go about my day. And then ideas will drop in throughout the day.
Mm.
And then I will implement that and revise it the next day. I'll spend another 1 to 2 hours on it and ideas come in. I take the same approach with writing. So once that article is like in my subconscious, over the course of the day, I'm going to have ideas of things to write about, that section that I've been trying to refine. So my editing process is I'll go through and kind of write out my first draft. I've over the years created a little bit of a checklist for like the weak points inside of my articles, which
Okay.
was generally my conclusions always needed work. The depth, making sure that I'm providing enough depth and detail and like vivid details and examples for what I'm speaking about in my articles. So I have a little bit of like a checklist to make sure that I go through those points and check for them specifically. Like, does my conclusion, you know, wrap everything up in each
Okay.
one of my sections? Am I providing enough depth and detail? So through working with mentors and asking for feedback from copywriters that I know, those were the recurring themes. So I'll go through and kind of go through that process. I'll read
Great.
it aloud because I find that when you try and speak an article, a lot of kind of clunky words, sentences that are too long, phraseology that doesn't really make sense. Also, redundancy. I go through and try and make sure that I'm not saying the same thing. As everybody watching this live, I have a tendency to repeat myself. So I try and clean that up to make it nice and clear. Then I will draft it into AI to do a final edit. The thing that with AI editing though is I've experimented a lot with the process with that. So it's very easy to just have AI rewrite a post. But what I try and do now is I will have AI with a set instructions of things that I'm asking it to look for, but I will have it list out the feedback for me instead
Yeah.
of telling or instead of just creating an edit for me. So it'll say like you're in this section, this isn't very clear, or like this concept is repeated twice. And then I will go through and I will try and make that edit myself.
Yeah.
Um, I found leveraging AI too much, while it helped put up content faster, I didn't enjoy the process as much. So I
Yeah.
find this is another one of those things when we come back to sacrifice.
Yeah.
If I used AI to produce an article, I could get out more,
Of
but
course.
I enjoy the creative process of writing them. So there's
Yeah.
this, I find it's a fine balance. And with a lot of this stuff, I don't think it's black and white. It's not this fine line. I think so much of it is nuanced and to the person, like what feels best. Because with the level of stuff that I've created in the past, I can use AI to write an article in my voice using
Yeah.
my original ideas
Yeah.
that I would feel comfortable putting out. But I don't find it as fun. So like it's just like I don't feel it. I enjoy the creative process of writing. So I try and leverage the tools to come up with ideas, to create my headlines, to provide editing and feedback and copy chiefing. But I try and put as much of myself into it just from an enjoyment standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. I think many writers with experience use AI this way. They maybe get some ideas in the beginning or some edits at the end in the end, but the middle is always they take care of the middle. And we have just a few minutes left. So to everyone, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat before it's too late. And let's switch gears for a moment because there was a question we didn't address. Maria was asking about yeah, well, she was asking, I would love to hear how you are resting and are there specific techniques to relax or just vision in general? So going back to the beginning of the interview.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sorry. Uh, let me. I would love to hear how you are resting. Are there specific techniques to relax or just leisure in general?
Yeah. So for me personally, the things that I like to do to relax are not necessarily the same things that everybody else likes to do to relax. I think this is incredibly individual.
Yeah.
Um, so, for example, like my wife likes to go on hikes. I'm not as much of a hike person. I
Okay.
like I find solitude very relaxing. So for me, things like massage, going for a float, I find meditation very relaxing. I also like, going to the gym, going for a run. Sometimes for me, stimulating activities can actually be very resting. And I
Mm.
feel for people that are neurodivergent, some of the things with how we're wired are a little contradicting to people where just sitting still for me can be very difficult. So I might need to be listening to music or going for a walk to do some of those things. So, great coffee, vacations, obviously I enjoy, but those little things for me are generally something that I really enjoy doing. So I could lose myself in 2 hours just creating a custom GPT because I find it.
Yeah.
I was playing around with AI on a weekend while my wife was away and created a custom notes dashboard with like a tool that scraped my Substack notes stats and little things like that. But generally, like some of those things, kind of like massage, floats, and stuff like that, are things that I really enjoy. What I would recommend somebody is to go into like, GPT-03 or something like that and just start to get curious about like, I'm
Mm.
experiencing burnout. What are some like different relaxation techniques that I can use? And there's a process called behavioral activation and cognitive behavioral therapy, which is just trying different things and seeing what you like. So for a long time, I was trying things like going and playing basketball. Like, how is this for me? Is this relaxing? Do I feel great? Do I feel more energized? Do I feel less energized? And just starting to experiment with activities that feel very good. So for me, it should be restful. I shouldn't be like exhausted or grumpy afterwards, but I
Mm.
also want it to be uplifting and be something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So part of some of the things I'm doing right now are I'm trying to heal my back so that I can play beach volleyball again because I've had chronic back pain and I haven't been able to play sports in many years. So that's something I'd love to do. I want to experiment with Tai Chi and doing kickboxing. So those are some things that I'm like, I think some of these activities could be really fun, so I have them on a list and it's like, I want to try these out. And if
Um,
I really enjoy doing them, they can now become kind of like a part of my like recovery routine. But it's to me, so much of it comes back to like joy and happiness where
yeah.
we're solopreneurs. So much of our life is wrapped up in what we do for work. But for so many years, work became my identity and I didn't know who I was without work. I didn't know how to have a conversation with somebody without talking about work. And I think that's great to a degree, but I think that there's more to all of this than just work. And I think these recoveries and hobbies and like finding a hobby at 36 is really freaking hard because I've spent my life just working. And it's like, what do normal people that aren't consumed with like, what do people do for fun? Like, what do people do on the weekend or downtime or what they're not when they're not working? And like trying to discover those things for yourself, I think is so incredibly valuable.
But uh, in a way, it's maybe you can get. I don't know. I was thinking that maybe your life isn't just work, but your work. No, no, your work isn't your life, but your life is becoming your work. I think because as you spend more time on Substack and you free up time to do whatever. Maybe, yeah, those uh, GPTs or anything you play or you play with on your weekend can also become part of your work. Since now you are solopreneur and have a portfolio basically of
Mhm.
uh, offers that make you money. And yeah, it's in a way, it's the opposite of work-life balance in the traditional sense because there's not a limited amount of work that must be counterbalanced with a fixed amount of leisure. It's everything. It's mixed and maybe confusing from an outside perspective, but it just flows. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, I think, like, it's just going to be so individual for every single
Yeah,
person, and I think the only way to figure out what feels great is by starting to try and do some stuff. Like, do something, see how it feels, try and be curious and aware of how it feels. Does it feel good? Do I feel better? Do I feel worse? And then just make incremental changes. There's no race. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm very
yeah,
curious about trying to make those improvements. And like for me, I love writing. And so much of the stories that I have for my writing come from all of the things that I'm doing when I'm not working. I'm not necessarily writing just about clients. I'm writing about a mastermind I was in, my trip to Bali when I was a digital nomad for 2 years living in Mexico. So a lot of these non-work related things can become the fuel and the stories for our creativity. So I think
absolutely.
that there's so much to it and everybody's different. Like I think if we have the goal is to get the perspective to be able to consciously choose what we're doing. And if we consciously choose to work more because we genuinely love it, we'll use someone like Gary Vee. Like he talks about how his hobby is work. And
Yeah,
I do like if we can, there's always going to be a spectrum. It's not black and white, it's not dichotomous. So there's going to be people that can work 8, 12, 16 hours a day
yeah,
and completely genuinely love what they're doing.
yeah,
And then there's going to be people that can't. So I think the problem is when we try and force ourselves into the mold that's set for somebody else.
yeah,
Because I
exactly.
think we're a lot more individual than people give ourselves credit for. So it's like work-life balance is a concept that needs to be applied to our own individual self. And I think that's where we just need to get curious and like never stop. Like we're never forced into anything. If you want to work more, great. But if you want to work less, it's possible. There might be some sacrifice, but kind of get curious about. I like to pull in like philosophy and think about like thought experiments. Like, if you wanted to work 4 hours a day, what would your business need to look like? Is it possible? Like,
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
might, I might remove work completely and then realize I want to bring it back because I miss it. But
mhm.
that's not something I see as a bad thing. That's just part of the journey that we're
Yeah.
on.
You have to keep reading or talking with inspiring people, and so that you get the right inputs, and then experiment, and then be sincere with yourself and
Yeah,
evaluate. Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. Thank you. This is officially the longest interview on the Unstoppable Creator. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation and learning more about you, because you publish a lot about growth, but less about yourself. And so this was the right medium to learn it. Okay, so where can people reach you? Because your publication page?
Yeah, so my publication, just search my name, Landon Poburan. The publication name is Landon's Letters. I'm very active on my publication. Weekly long form posts go out. I'm posting daily on notes. I do have a second publication that's a little bit more Facebook advertising focused, and
Okay.
also like a semi experiment where I'm just gonna like try things and see if they work. So if people are interested in paid advertising, they can subscribe over there. And then there's also my website, which is landonp.com. And yeah, I'm not too hard to find on the internet.
Perfect. So thank you so much again, and I hope we will talk again maybe in a few months.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. It was great to chat. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.